vote for people who stop Brexit, isn't it?
We're not talking about stopping Brexit.
It's what you want to do.
No, it is not. If you stand back from the emotion of this all, it is pure logic and common sense that there are all options on the table. And there are broadly three options. One is for a fantastic deal where everyone gets what they want. The second is WTO, which the government itself has accepted is far more complicated than they first envisaged. And the third is looking at if we would be better off remaining. Now, anybody who says...
And you would vote to remain?
No, because I was never for a remain or leave. It was about remaining if that was the best option.
But
this has to be about
everything you do
options.
is calculated to thwart Brexit. That's what you're about. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a democracy. You're allowed to thwart whatever you want. But why not just admit it instead of having this kind of carapace of other motives over it?
Well, I love that you know what's in my mind, because it's not.
It's quite easy to see.
No, it is not.
Hold on, you just talked about a country. We will be deserted by foreign workers. That was how you opened your piece. You think we're going to hell in a handbasket if we leave.
No, I'm interested in the facts. I'm not interested in the emotions of any of this.
Well, why will we be deserted by foreign workers?
Because you can already see that if we are not going to have access to free movement, there will be a problem.
Why will we be deserted by foreign workers by leaving the EU?
Because we will not have free movement of people.
But why will we be deserted? Deserted means all the people coming who are already here will leave. Why?
Well, from the experience I've had since I started my court case, there is an air around people in the UK where they feel that they've been kicked in their stud. They haven't left yet.
No, so why would we be deserted? I mean, the point is that phrase, deserted by foreign workers, a Britain much poorer, it shows what you really think. It's a perfectly legitimate point of view, but you don't seem to want to be honest enough just to admit that that is what your game plan is.
I'm honest enough to say that nobody knows the future.
You just said we'll be deserted by foreign workers.
No, that is a possibility. And already we're seeing that people are feeling that they're not welcomed here and that then somehow...
Who's not welcome here?
I get thousands and thousands of emails from people and messages and phone calls from people saying that they feel then they are no longer welcomed.
But that's because you've taken a high-profile position. We all get that. I get lots of attacks on things as well, and you've
No, I've not had attacks. I'm not talking about the attacks.
No, I mean verbal attacks.
No, I'm not talking about the attacks. I'm talking about people's experiences of how they feel. They feel that they're no longer welcomed here, that they feel that this is not the country that they thought it was.
All right. What do you make of Gina's tactical voting plan?
Well, first of all, to talk about a Brexit that's not really a Brexit is a complete nonsense. We cannot continue to be governed by EU laws, remain subject to free movement of labour, and actually have anything that qualifies for the title Brexit. It is one or the other. I mean, I share Andrew's view. For goodness sake, say what you mean, which is that you want to remain. And let's have that debate. My worry always was this was going to turn into a second referendum. There are other issues which we ought to be discussing, but that wasn't the question you asked me. It was about tactical voting, wasn't it?
Will it work?
It generally doesn't. I mean, you'll always get some uptake, but it generally doesn't. And every time I hear in elections, oh, well, there's going to be tactical voting, there's going to be alliances, there's going to be people withdrawing in favour of other people. Doesn't actually happen because the canvas is so broad that in the end people aren't just deciding on Brexit, however important it is. I mean, would you really vote for Corbyn just because there's a pro-Remain candidate there? I mean, you won't.
Well, I mean, Mr. Corbyn is not overwhelmingly pro-Remain, I think, as we can see.
That wasn't my point. That wasn't my point.
Why should there not be a referendum on the final deal?
I have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of referenda, partly because I think people elect members of Parliament to give effect to their wishes. And I think we saw with the referendum and the triggering of Article 50 the difficulties for members of Parliament when they're juxtaposed against a direct democratic popular vote. So personally, I would rather it was members of Parliament voting on it.
So it goes to the Commons rather than to a referendum, is what?
Yes, because we're elected to do a job. Now, I think what Gina's doing is very interesting and actually very helpful in the context of this election for people who are part of that 48% who want to know where different MPs stand on things. And I think what your project is going to help voters do is be able to identify whether you've got somebody who is in favour of a soft Brexit.
What is a soft Brexit?
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
look, there are two ways of... This is my subjective analysis of it. I know Anne's
That's
got
why
a
I'm
different...
asking your opinion.
Yeah. Look, there are two ways, I think, of withdrawing from the EU. You can do it in a quite extreme way, in a job-destroying and livelihood-destroying way.
What's a soft Brexit?
Well, my definition of a soft Brexit would be where we remain a member of the single market.
So we'd still be subject to the European
Free
Court of
movement of
Justice?
labour.
Yes, but hang on just a minute. I think
that's right.
Yeah, that's right. But
so in what way have we left?
Well, hang on just a minute. Let me finish. A lot is made of that point, but of course, if we want to continue trading with the European Union, the free trade agreement will be governed by some other authority.
Well, but it will not necessarily be governed by the European Court.
Yes, but also, Andrew, if we want to continue trading into the European Union, as leavers and remainers are both saying, we're going to have to comply with the standards and the rules that are set by the Europeans.
We have to do that for America, to export to America.
Sure,
we have to do that. But there's no. Last time I looked, there's no freedom of movement between Britain and America. Let me come back to Gina Miller's very patient here. Would you like a referendum if and when there is a deal done?
No, I think it should be up to the ministers in Parliament. That's why we have
MPs.
a Parliament and MPs in Parliament, because we have a parliamentary democracy. We don't have a direct democracy. And I think if we elect MPs, they should be able to vote, have a meaningful vote on whatever the deal is.
But they are.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, they are. How could any government stop them?
Well, if you look at the government's copybook on using the royal prerogative Article 50, in my case, they tried to bypass Parliament. So how do you know they won't do that again?
Well, the government's already said it's inconceivable for the European Parliament to have a vote on the final deal and not the British Parliament. So it's on the record.
Mrs May has promised that there will be a vote. On a hard deal or no deal. That's not a meaningful vote. A meaningful vote is a vote on all the options that are available to MPs.
A meaningful vote is, this is the deal that has been negotiated, and there will only be one deal negotiated at the end of it, and this is its components. And do we accept that or not? That is the only question that can be asked, because there is no other deal on offer.
No, but there are three options on the deal. No, there are three options, not two.
There's another way of doing it, which is to give Parliament a vote earlier so that it can actually say to the Prime Minister, look, go back and...
Oh, it can tie the Prime Minister's hands in negotiations.
Go back.
Oh, that's bright, isn't it?
Well, I disagree with this notion of how it affects her bargaining power.
Of course it will affect.
But an interesting thing, can I just slightly come on a different tack here, is the extent to which this general election that we're going to have is ultimately going to be governed by this Remain-Leave issue, or whether by the end of this 7-week period, 7 weeks today,
sure, but we're talking about
that's
process.
Economic competence. Whether it's economic competence, leadership,
coming
and all
on
those
to the election in a minute, I want to stick with the reason why we've got Gina Miller here tonight. It's been I think, a legitimate criticism from the Remain side that the country voted to leave, but the actual shape of leaving was not exactly clear. People had different views about it. Mrs May herself was a Remainer. But if she now campaigns for Brexit in this election campaign, in which she says, which is her position, we're leaving membership of the single market, we want to leave the customs union, we want to get out of the European Court, and we want an end of free movement of people.
Yes.
And if she wins the election on a big mandate, she's got a negotiating mandate to do that, hasn't she?
Absolutely.
So it would be wrong to
absolutely no
thwart her.
problem. Well, no, of course there wouldn't be, because I mean
So what's the point of this progressive alliance?
Because what we're talking about is ensuring that there isn't this huge mandate, because the options, as far as we see it, is that you have you look back to what Francis Pym said in 1983, is that, an elected majority is almost an elected dictatorship. And that's the thing we're saying.
Well, it was Hailsham that said election dictatorship. Francis Pym just speculated that maybe the Tory majority could be too big. But you would accept, therefore, if she gets because she will have to spell out what her negotiating position is going to be.
I think all the manifestos will.
And if she gets a mandate for that, then that's it. She's got the mandate to go and negotiate on that basis.
She does, but no Prime Minister is above the law. And if in 18 months, 2 years, 5 years, whenever it is that the Prime Minister comes back with the negotiated package and doesn't give Parliament a full, meaningful vote, then we may have to seek the advice of the courts onto whether she's allowed to do that.
Back to the courts.
Because nobody is above the law.
I understand that. But have you turned tinkering or interfering in the democratic process into a rich woman's hobby?
When is it my hobby and when is it I'm a rich woman?
Well, it seems
I actually have a significant day job and several other day jobs. This is not a hobby. I'm a transparency campaigner. I've done this for nearly a decade. And also, is it okay that if I'm rich because I've earned my own money, that I might use it to do my civic
I've just wondered
duty?
whether it's become your hobby or not.
It's absolutely not my hobby. I'm doing what I think is right.
Because when you did the court case at the beginning, you said that I just want the court case to rule that the Commons gets a vote on it. That's all I'm.
It was about democracy.
And you did
absolutely.
that. But now you're on to a progressive alliance, and now you're saying I may have to go back to the
Which is
courts.
still about democracy.
Yeah, but
it is still about democracy.
It's given you a new purpose in life, hasn't it?
Absolutely not. It's the same purpose, which is everyone has the duty to stand up for what they believe in. And if they believe in democracy, then stand up and talk about it.
OK. Gina Miller, thank you.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.